Now it's working. Well, let me restart my whole spiel. I had a very funny opening statement. I said, live from Arizona, it's Saturday night. No, it's not Saturday night. Live from Arizona, it's Thursday night. You can hear me now, right? Yeah. So the reason I'm in Arizona is my parents live here. I'm just visiting my parents for about 2 weeks. Noise might be the fan. Yeah, so I don't have an ideal setup. I apologize for that, but I just wanted to spend some time with you on Bhāgavatam. Maybe it's too loud. In case you don't know what the Bhāgavatam is, you probably know what Vedic astrology is. Well, the Vedic part of Vedic astrology is the Vedas. The Vedas are ancient knowledge handed down, let's say, by the ancient Indian civilization, let's say. So of all the Vedas, the part that's the most relevant and accessible are called the Puranas. And of all the Puranas, the one that is the most complete is called the Bhāgavatam. And that's what we're looking at today. We're studying the Bhāgavatam. And that's what we've been doing on my channel for years. So we're up to part 5. Actually, I could go out to my dad's bookshelf to show you the ones that we've already published. We've already published our work together on cantos 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you don't have them, then go to my website, victorcara.com, and click to the books section, and you'll find them there. The 4 cantos of the Bhāgavatam that we already published. Hey, Bardo. So, since we already published 4, that means we're working on the 5th one. So right now, we're working on the 5th canto, the 5th section of the Bhāgavatam. That's what we're going to study today. So we've been doing this. This must be now the 4th week, I think, that we've been looking at the 5th canto. So the first story in the 5th canto is about this person called Rishabha, who is an avatar of Vishnu. The first 3 weeks we spent looking at Rishabha's backstory. Like, who is his father and mother, and who are their parents, and who is their parents. Because it goes back, interestingly, to Brahma. But now we're actually at the point where we get to Rishabha himself. If you remember, last time we spoke, which I think was 2 weeks ago, because last week I was on a plane. Last time we spoke, we talked about Rishabha's mother and father performing a Vedic yagya, a Vedic ceremony, because they couldn't conceive a child. Umuma, thank you for joining us. So since they couldn't conceive a child, they did this pravargya, I think it's called, for Ashvinis, but they actually invoked Vishnu because of their love for Vishnu. Even though they were worshipping Ashvinis, they invoked Vishnu. And then the priests on behalf of Nabi said they want a child as excellent as you. And Vishnu said, that's pretty difficult because I'm the only one of me. So, but since you guys are so nice, I'll become your son. So that's where we'll pick up the story. Let me scroll to the right spot, and then I'll start reading it. So this is Rishabha in his childhood. The first section is about his childhood. Right from his birth, his divinity was obvious. Exquisite and abundant equanimity, tranquility, detachment, and majesty flowed naturally from him more and more clearly every day as he grew up. Vigor, strength, beauty, charisma, and heroism blazed in his character. So, some people I think I'm an avatar, blah, blah, blah. If you're an avatar, bro, it's blazingly obvious. There's not really any questions about it. So that's the point that's being conveyed here. Like, right from the get-go, right from infancy, just incredible majesty, equanimity. Equanimity means being equal towards things. Tranquility means just being happy all the time. being content. Detachment means not worrying about unhappiness. And then having so much vigor or strength, having so much health, having so much beauty and charisma and heroism, all those natural qualities of Bhagavan were just as obvious as the heat of fire. And that's what it means to be an avatar of Vishnu. Seeing this, his father named him Ṛṣabha. You might wonder what Ṛṣabha means, and you may have heard the word Rishi. What Rishi actually means is the leader. Typically people, including myself, translate Rishi as sage or seer. But literally Rishi means the leader. Because the person who can see or has the wisdom to know what's what is the leader. That's why it gets functionally translated as sage or seer. But really it means leader, and Rishabha means the best, the best. So seeing all these incredible qualities in the child, the father said, I might as well name him the best, because he's obviously the best. So he named him Rishabha, the best. Constantly overwhelmed in a downpour of excessive joy, King Nabi would often stutter with tears and say, the all-attractive ancient person has willingly become one of us. I think I want to explain this, but let me just read this next paragraph as well. Although his intellect was aware of Rishabha's divinity, his beautiful heart was decorated with paramount magical bliss and affectionately embraced the boy as his own child. My boy, my dear. All right. I wanted to explain something to you about love and the stimulants of love. What causes a person to love somebody else? According to the Vedic analysis of it, there's two stimulants for love. One is called Aishwarya and the other is called Madhurya. What that means is power and sweetness. Those are two things that inspire love. Power means when a person is so competent, capable, that's power, that's Aishwarya. When they can handle any situation, and when you're with them you feel like, of course everything is going to be okay. That's Aishwarya. That evokes love. And then also Madhurya evokes love. Madhurya means honeyness, honey-likeness, sweetness. So those are just the traits. Typically, males evoke love through Aishwarya, females through sweetness, so it's not hard. It's not a hard division like that. But typically, Madhurya is the sweetness of a person's character and characteristics. So, for example, the shape of your nose might be very beautiful. That's a sweetness. Your eyelashes or whatever might be very sweet. Your tone of your voice, the way you speak, shape of your body, the way you think, the way you act, the way you treat people, those are examples of sweetness. It's not power, it's sweetness. So those are the two stimulants of love. That's what makes one person love another person, is they're attracted to the sweetness and or the power. The love that can be produced by the two is not exactly the same. Now, love is love, so it's not quite accurate to say that love is not exactly the same, but the ceiling on the intensity of the love is not the same. The ceiling on the intensity of the love that's inspired by power is lower than the ceiling that's inspired by sweetness. And actually, there is no ceiling on the love that's inspired by sweetness, but this love that's inspired by power has a ceiling. Why? It's because part of being powerful is to be superior. Like, especially a father and mother, the child is attracted to them a lot for Aishwarya. because they're superior in so many ways. They understand everything. Somehow they're able to produce food. Somehow they're able to keep a roof over your head. They're superior. They're stronger. They're more experienced, etc. So power and superiority or hierarchy go hand in hand. If you eliminate hierarchy, you eliminate a lot of the potency of the sense of power. This person is much more powerful than me. So intimacy, however, eliminates hierarchy. Right? Intimacy is sameness. So what you find is the love that is stimulated by power maintains a certain formality to it, maintains a lot of rules, and maintains a lot of distance, or some distance, between the partners. Because should that distance and hierarchy disappear, then the sense of this person being powerful also disappears, and then the love ceases to be so stimulated. You understand? Whereas sweetness, it doesn't have that ceiling at all. Sweetness has no reliance on hierarchy. Sweetness is just the qualities, and the more intimate you get with the qualities, the more interesting, the more attractive they are, the more you feel them. So there are two ways to stimulate love. One is by power and one is by sweetness. But actually the one by power has limitations to how far it will go, and the one that's inspired by sweetness doesn't have limitations. Now, coming back to the story of Ṛṣabha and the way his father is acting here, you can really see this dynamic between power-inspired and sweetness-inspired love in the way the various parents of Vishnu's avatars feel about their child. Look at what Ṛṣabha's father, Nabi, said. He said he was stuttering with tears. So that means he's overwhelmed with love. And he says, the all-attractive ancient person has willingly become one of us. So in Nabi, there's this incredible balance, really, between power and sweetness. It's like he's equally inspired by both, which is fairly unusual. Usually it's more clearly one or the other. So he's saying, the all-attractive ancient person, so he realized that his kid is Vishnu, the supreme being. So so he's very aware of the power aspect of this child that he loves. Yet he says this ancient, attractive person has willingly become one of us. He's become intimate with us. On his own will, he's become intimate with us. He's broken the bond of that hierarchy and power structure. Isn't he sweet? Isn't that sweet? Right? Bardo says transactional love and hierarchy. Yeah, that's like power. But it's not that power in inspired love is false or is corrupt or something. It's love. It just has a ceiling to it. It has a ceiling. So, but Nabi has broke through that ceiling because his initial appreciation is that this is the supreme being. But then he feels that the supreme being has become equal with me or even subservient to me because he's my child. And isn't that amazing? Isn't that his most wonderful quality? Then the next paragraph that he says is, the Bhāgavatam says, although his intellect was aware of Ṛṣabha's divinity, his beautiful heart was decorated with paramount magical bliss. The actual text says his heart was decorated with magic or Maya. So Maya is where you don't see something exactly the way it is. The exact way to see it is that Vishnu is Vishnu and I am a part of Vishnu, therefore I'm subservient of Vishnu in the same way my hand is subservient on the rest of my body. That's the truth. That's the objective truth. But if you see it that way, you're not going to be able to raise Vishnu as your child. You're going to always be asking Vishnu for things as if he was your father. So it will inhibit the sweetness and it will limit the love. So his mind was affected by Maya, but it's not polluted by Maya. It's decorated by Maya. This is a wonderful spiritual Maya, which causes, by which the love that a person has is stronger than the intellect that they have. So although he's aware that Ṛṣabha is divine, the more powerful is he thinks he has the most wonderful son in the world. And so he doesn't call him Sri Vishnu, Hey Narayan. He says, my boy, my dear. And he's not like praying to him, he's hugging him. So it's interesting now, other times when we see different parents of Vishnu avatars, think about this paradigm and see what they're like. Especially see what Krishna's father and mother, Nanda and Yashoda, are like. The power aspect is almost completely absent in them, and it's all sweetness. And then you can see others, maybe Aditi, I'm not sure, can't think of a good example offhand, but they're very, very power-stimulated love and just a little bit of sweetness. And then you can also take it into your own life, and you can see love and sweetness acting in different love relationships. Okay, so now let's get back to the reading. Right from birth, his divinity was obvious. Exquisite and abundant equanimity, tranquility, detachment, and majesty flowed naturally from him more and more clearly every day as he grew up. Vigor, strength, beauty, charisma, and heroism blazed in his character. Seeing this, his father named him Ṛṣabha, the best. Constantly overwhelmed in a downpour of excessive joy, King Nabi would often stutter with tears and say, "The all-attractive ancient person has willingly become one of us." Although his intellect was aware of Ṛṣabha's divinity, his beautiful heart was decorated with paramount magical bliss, and affectionately embraced the boy as his own child. My boy, my dear. Politicians, commoners, intellectuals, and even the gods, everyone was eager for him to mature and become king. Only one person was unhappy. Who do you think was unhappy? What nakshatra would have problems with rivals? Jyeshta, and who's the Devata of Jyeshta? Indra. So who is unhappy with the avatar of Ṛṣabha? Indra only. Indra was unhappy because he's biting his nails on, no, this guy's more powerful than me. Only Indra was unhappy, worried that the powerful child would challenge him. Indra decided to try to humiliate the child, or show that you better be subservient to me. So what he did was he brought drought to the kingdom. The kingdom that Ṛṣabha ruled was called Ajanabha. Remember, Ṛṣabha's father's name is Nabi. And Aja is Vishnu. So it's the combination of Vishnu and Nabi's kingdom, Ajanabha. Indra refused to allow rain. Indra is the god of rain, and also who is also the king or the leader of the gods. So he refused to allow rain to fall on Ajanabha kingdom. This seemed humorous to young Ṛṣabha. They didn't say his age here, but he's probably around 6 or 7 years old. This seemed humorous to young Ṛṣabha, who simply used his own effortless divine powers to bring back the rains. Indra was defeated by a little boy. So that backfired on Indra. And Indra does the same, very similar thing with Krishna's avatar. In a sense, opposite. Instead of sending a drought, he tried to send floods. But then Krishna totally diffused all of that, and then he was just had the embarrassment of being defeated by a little boy. But you'll find out some interesting stuff in a second when you find out who Ṛṣabha marries. It's also related with Indra, so keep that in mind. But this is also very political. It could be political. Nothing was really said in the text explaining it. But we can talk about it if you want. Once Rishabha was full grown, once he was full grown and well educated, King Nabi fulfilled everyone's dreams by inaugurating and entrusting him with the kingdom. Nabi and his wife Maradevi went to the holy place Vishalaya to perform austerity with great joy and expertise. There they worshipped and achieved the all-attractive personality of consciousness, the origin and original personality, with complete yogic absorption. That is also really interesting. And you saw the same thing happen with Kardama in relation to Kapila, the avatar that we learned about in Canto 3. He had Vishnu as his son, but he still went about his regular duties of going to the forest to meditate on Vishnu. You got Vishnu as your son. Why are you going to the forest to meditate on Vishnu? Because you temporarily have Vishnu as your son, but you want to permanently achieve a status of relationship to Vishnu, so you have to go. And I mean, at least these people felt that they had to go and meditate on Vishnu to achieve that status. Or they wanted to just be normal people and make sure that they didn't disrupt the standards. So in any case, it's interesting that his father retired, gave him the kingdom as soon as possible because everybody wanted so much, and then went with his wife to the forest to meditate on Vishnu, who is the son that they just left behind in the kingdom. Also, the parents got to get out of the way. It's something interesting to think about. And then there's this song that Shuka quotes about Nabi. What the sage King Nabi did, who could even imitate? Hari became his child by the purity in his deed. Such respect for scholars only Nabi had, so moving that it revealed the Lord of sacrifice and their sacrifice. So that's the last that we're going to hear about Nabi, and now the attention is going to go to Ṛṣabha as a king. Manager's minion says is still perplexed by Indra worship. I mean, there's a reason why Indra is the most important god. It's because rain is the most important thing. And come live in Arizona for a bit to understand why. Rain's the most important thing, because if you don't get it, I hope you like to eat cactus or roadrunners, and even that, you're getting a bunch of rain to be able to grow a cactus. Go live in Sahara if you really want to see how important Indra is. And that's why people worship him. These days we don't think that it's necessary to worship a god of rain in order to get rain. Doesn't rain just naturally happen? Then again, we're about to screw up the whole planet. So maybe our ideas about nature and the way nature works might not be the most accurate, might not be the most effective. Certainly it does run on karma, so there actually isn't a definite need to worship devas. You just do activities and that will generate actions and reactions that cause or rain to come or not come. But if you want to do it organically, so to speak, naturally, in the best possible way, then you worship Indra to get rain. Right, so let's go on and talk about Rishabha as a king. And then maybe we'll end with that. Or not. Let's see how much we feel like covering. Go for at least another half hour. So here's about Rishabha as a king. Quote, "Let me make a kingdom that is like a farm," Rishabha thought, "and let my crop be the advancement and prosperity of each individual." Don't you wish that there were leaders that felt like that? Let my kingdom be like a farm where the crop is everyone's prosperity and advancement of each individual. It's so we've descended. We don't realize how bad we have it. We think that all of our industrial revolution and progress of government and science is so great, and that now we're living in such better conditions. But we're living in horrible conditions, and one of the most horrible conditions is that the leaders don't give a damn about the people that they're following, or even if they do care a bit, There are other things that they care about equally as much. But Ṛṣabha has this great thought in his head. I'm the king now. Let's make the kingdom a farm and let my crop be the advancement and prosperity of each individual. With this goal in mind, he decided to teach his citizens by example the most ideal way to advance towards true prosperity. So he realizes, I'm a king, I'm not a teacher in a classroom. I'm not just going to get up and give speeches. I'm going to live my life a certain way. Show people how they can actually become prosperous and make advancement in their life. Also, he didn't try to teach them things that were irrelevant to them. He didn't try to say, let me teach everybody about Brahman. Because it's not relevant to 90% of people. They don't care about Brahman. They care about good food, good music, good sex, happy family. So let me teach them how to achieve that, because that's what they're interested in. But let me teach them how to achieve that in an organic, natural way that leads them higher and higher and higher into greater and greater and greater forms of prosperity and happiness. He began by moving into a teacher's home, since education is the first step forward. He was already educated, but since he was the king, he decided to set an example to show that the first thing you need to do is get education. Real education. Completing his studies there, he paid his teacher generously. So people that think that you don't pay for knowledge is quite a joke. Completing his studies there, he paid his teacher generously and received his permission to progress to the second step forward, which is raising a family. So the first step forward is education, and the second step forward is applying that education for people. Just like the king had to have this mentality, every one of us has to have this mentality, and our kingdom is a family. We raise a family. And it's interesting that he had to graduate from school before he could do that. It's similar to that even to this day. You don't really get the skills that you need until after you've done your school. Then you can get employment and get a family, basically. And it was the same way in the old days. The kids would go and study at school, and then when they would get out of the school, the teacher would say, now you're competent. But it's not just vocationally competent. You have the character traits that a parent should have and that a spouse should have. So now that you have those character traits, go and be a parent and a spouse. And that's the second stage of life. So that's what he did. He wanted to now show how do you live life correctly as a father and as a husband. So he married Indra's own daughter, Jayanti. That's so interesting because he had this run-in with Indra previously. So there's no backstory there in the Bhāgavatam. There's no explanation of it. And whatever research I was able to do, I haven't really found too much backstory on it. But there's a couple of different options that are in my mind about the backstory. One is that Indra realized this person is great, which would be similar to how he dealt with Krishna. After trying to flood Vrindavan, he realized this is not an ordinary little kid. This is Vishnu. And then he treated him right. So the same thing might have happened with Rishabha. After trying to bring drought and getting overpowered by a 6-year-old kid, he may have realized, this is Vishnu, I better do something nice. And then he may have arranged for the union of his daughter. The other thing is, since Indra is such a politician, and maybe there's more than, maybe all of these are true at the same time, but since Indra is such a politician, marriage is a very important part of politics as well. So he may have decided, if you can't beat him, you join him. So let me join my family to his. Whatever case, Rishabha married Indra's daughter. Wow. Marry Indra's daughter, the king of the gods, the daughter of the princess of the gods. Remember, he's the avatar of Vishnu, but that means that he has become one of us. He's a human. But he married Jayanti, and began showing the perfect example of how to focus on material and spiritual development simultaneously. So that is what you do when you're raising a family. You focus on the material development of the family and taking care of everybody's needs. And by doing so, you cultivate qualities that are very advantageous to your spiritual growth. So that's what he did. How many kids do you think he had? Don't forget, these people are humans, but they're humans from a different type of earth. The amount of time that they live, the kind of powers that they have, as well as how many children they can have, is fantastic. So he had 100 children with Jayanti, and apparently he had no other wife besides Jayanti. So Jayanti gave him 100 children, all with character and traits similar to his. There are many famous kids amongst these 100. And Shuka will mention them real quickly here. Among these 100, the eldest particularly stands out. You have any idea who the eldest one is? So we got Brahma, Manu, Priyavrata, Agnidra, Nabi, Ṛṣabha, and then who's after Rishabha in the family tree? Bharata. The eldest son of Ṛṣabha is Bharata. The next story in the 5th canto is all about Bharata, which is really the diamond in the ring of the 5th canto is that story. So Jayanti gave him 100 children, all with character and traits similar to his. Among them, the eldest particularly stands out, a great yogi named Bharata. Indeed, the country became named after him. We will hear this story in detail next. That's why traditionally Indians refer to India as Bharata. Of the 90 others, why 90? I think I wrote this wrong. There's 99 others, right? Anyway, of the 99 others, 9 would become particularly important rulers, and then the names are given in the Bhāgavatam. You'll see it later. And another 9 become exquisitely realized devotees who directly experienced the true nature of the all-attractive. We will hear about them in detail later. So just to give you a heads up on who they are, like Prabhuda, and sages like that, who are going to give us teachings in the later sections of the Bhāgavatam, are Rishabha's children. The rest of the children were broadly educated intellectuals of excellent character, pure deeds, and expertise in ceremony. This is not right, I didn't write it here, but this proves that the caste system is fraudulent. Because by the caste system, your child has the same social role as you. But here, Rishabha is a king or a Kshatriya, but the majority of his children took the social role of Brahmanas. So that disproves the whole caste system. Just like you can disprove the sidereal zodiac, but nobody cares. They keep doing it anyway. The same way, you might say, well, then why did the caste system persist in India for so long? Because people don't care. They care more about doing what they're already doing, rather than doing what is supposed to be done. All attractive Ṛṣabha was self-satisfied by his own pure joy and always untroubled by the complications of unnecessary and meaningless matters. Nonetheless, he acted ordinary. Why? You already know why. He acted ordinary and earnestly pursued ambitions because he wanted to personally illustrate how regular people leading regular lives could achieve integrity, prosperity, and fame in both the sexual and spiritual spheres through kindness, friendliness, peacefulness, and equipoise. Those 4 traits are required for both spheres of life, the worldly and the otherworldly. You need kindness to really prosper, friendliness, peacefulness, and equipoise. And Ṛṣabha wanted to show it, because you don't really believe something until you see it. So he wanted to show it, even though he didn't need to do any of this stuff. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. That's why he comes as an avatar, to show the right path. He doesn't need to follow the right path, but he shows it. Knowing that people will always imitate their leaders, he made sure to live in a way that would benefit them. Under the guidance of learned scholars and priests, he illustrated how people should perform all the conventional Vedic ceremonies by executing each one 100 times, because he had 100 kids. So the conventional ceremonies are like Arbhadan, the first, like the conception rite, the birth rite, the hair cutting rite, the rite for feed, first solid food rite. I think the next one is the starting education rite, and then I think the next one is marriage. And then there aren't too many rites after that until death. So he showed you how you do all these, right? He showed them how to do it by doing it himself 100 times. What a great teacher. Now, listen to this bit. Due to his guidance, not a single person in his entire kingdom in any way ever failed to realize other people are as important as I am. That's the thing we need to try to realize. Other people are as important as I am. And because of seeing the way their leader was acting all the time, they constantly felt that way, because he constantly showed that. This is why when you get a crazy person in a position of leadership, the whole country goes crazy. Other people are as important as I am, always seeing the master in everyone. Love for one another flourished everywhere. Once, okay? So that is the general thing, general story of how he lived his life. Now this next part is going to go to a specific teaching that he gave at the end of his active life, before he became a yogi and showed how you give up your active life to pursue direct spiritual practices. In a conventional life, you're pursuing spiritual progress by material activities, because the material activities are cultivating your humility, cultivating your selflessness, cultivating your tolerance, and so on. But in the other section of your life, which is typically the later section, you stop pursuing material development and you pursue meditational practices directly. So he's going to do that. And this next incident is at the end, on the border between those two phases of Ṛṣabha's life. By the way, if you may not have never heard of Ṛṣabha before and think, like, who is this person I'm not excited about? I never heard of Ṛṣabha before, but Rishabha is like the Vishnu for the Jains. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Jainism. So, once, while traveling with his full-grown and well-educated children, that's how you know that this is the end of his active life, because that's typically when people retire, kings, when they can pass on the family business to the kids. So once, while traveling with his full-grown and well-educated children, he came upon an assembly where great sages were educating the common people. In those days, not everybody even learned how to read, but there wasn't a need to, because they would regularly have these days of the week where they would all get together with the sages, and the sages would teach them. So you don't need to be a book reader yourself. When you have somebody who reads the books and understands them, explain them to you and able to answer your questions about them. So sometimes people look back in the past and say there was a low literacy rate. There wasn't a low literacy rate. People were more immersed in books than they are today. Just that the way of reading the book was through a living person. So that was going on here. The sages were educating the common people, and Ṛṣabha and his kids, who were traveling from one place to another in a royal procession, happened to come across this, and then Ṛṣabha took the opportunity to instruct his children in that assembly. And all the sages and people gathered around to listen to him with attentive and open hearts. Why would he bother? It just said that his children were well educated already. So why did he feel like he had to educate them? He didn't. He felt like, here's an opportunity. All these people are gathered here talking about philosophy and life and important things. This is an opportunity to teach them. But I don't want to be so presumptuous as to try to teach everybody. So I'll just teach my kids, which is natural, but in a place where they can all come and listen if they want. And that's what he did, and then the whole assembly came together around him and listened. Now, there will be one chapter. So what we've covered right there is the fourth chapter of Canto 5. There's going to be a whole chapter about what he taught to his kids. I will just teach you the bit that I have translated so far, or finished, polished. It's actually quite a bit. And then we'll call it a day. So the first section is called Two Gates. He talks about two gates. My dear children, he said, you are human beings. You don't deserve to chase the same pleasures stool-eating pigs chase. What a great statement. I wish Alf was here with us. This is the kind of statement that gets Alf going. My dear children, you're human beings. You don't deserve to chase the same pleasures that stool-eating pigs chase. Human beings. See, do you understand that? It's like if you're a computer, you don't deserve to be to be used for hammering nails. If you're a human, you don't deserve to pursue the same things that animals pursue. Human beings should strive for divine goals, because such things reward us with tranquil clarity and infinite, effortless happiness. Why strive for a kind of a happiness that's available to pigs when you could strive for a happiness which is far superior? On the road of life, he said, there are two gates. Those who pursue the goals of pigs walk through the gate of darkness, but the liberating gate welcomes those who pursue divine goals by honoring people who are equal-minded, content, angerless, affectionate, and appreciative of the good qualities of others. That's very interesting. The qualities of a good person are to be equal-minded, not prejudice. Equal-minded, content, not ambitious. Content means you know how to find happiness in what you are. Angerless, affectionate, and appreciative of the good qualities of others. So it's not even that you have to be that person to go through the liberating gate. You just have to appreciate and value those people. That will cause you to follow in the same direction that they're going, and they're going through the liberating gate. Hi, Kitty. Now, one of his children asked, if we should respect these great souls, how should we treat ordinary people obsessed with ordinary things? Because Ṛṣabha said, you should respect these great people. So now the kid said, what about regular people? Are you implying that we shouldn't respect regular people? So Ṛṣabha says, everyone deserves respect for something. So figure out what that is, and respect everyone accordingly. That's an important concept. You might be a lousy person, but you might be good at sewing, so I should respect that you're good at sewing. Or you might be lousy at everything, but you might be a good-hearted person, so I should respect that you're a really good-hearted person. Everybody has something respectable about them. So a person who wants to be progressive and go through the liberating gate on their life, they should find the good qualities in others and respect them. Yet, the person who's full of good qualities, the person who's really exemplary, should be respected even more. That's what Ṛṣabha is saying. Everyone deserves respect for something, so figure out what that is and respect everyone accordingly. Still, reserve your deepest respect and receptivity for great souls. This will lead you on the path through the liberating gate all the way to the Divine Master. So that's an important side effect of respect, is receptivity. The thing that you respect, you become open to. You're not willing to be, we are not willing to be influenced by stuff we don't like. We don't want to be influenced by stuff we don't like. We don't want to be influenced by stuff we don't value. But we do want to be influenced by stuff we like and stuff we value, right? It's completely natural. So, although it's good to, that is why it is good to respect people for what they are deserve to be respected for. Then you'll always be getting influenced by somebody's good qualities instead of their bad qualities. If you disrespect people for their bad qualities, then you become attentive to their bad qualities. You get influenced by the bad qualities. But if you respect them for their good qualities, you get influenced and inspired by their good qualities. So it's therefore important to respect appropriately. If somebody is 100% respectable versus somebody who's 1% respectable, both of them should be respected. But the amount of respect and receptivity for the 100% person should be 100%. So it doesn't mean, it's just if somebody is a very bad person who happens to be good at sewing, it doesn't mean that you should treat them like they're a good person. They're a bad person. You shouldn't get influenced by them. But you should respect them for sewing. And if you want to, you should be influenced by their sewing. You see? Not be in the mud with the pigs, Kitty says, but respect the pigs. Another of his children asked, most humans do not exactly chase what pigs chase, but seek much more sophisticated and refined forms of pleasure. What about this? So this question is like, you kind of over-exaggerated. Dad, you said, you're humans, you shouldn't chase what stool-eating pigs chase. I'm not trying to chase what stool-eating pigs chase. I'm trying to chase, refined sexuality and sophisticated romantic interactions and, well-developed music and scientific ideas. That's not the same thing that animals chase. So Rishabha responds to that. He says, think of pleasure in two categories: acquired and innate. We acquire pleasure by obtaining pleasurable sensorial things. We discover innate pleasure by being blessed to experience our true nature. Animals, like pigs, seek happiness through their senses. Human beings can do more than this. We can discover our innate pleasure. So this is this paradigm. There's two kinds of pleasure. One is pleasure from stuff that you get, and one is pleasure from things that you are. He says that animals tend to seek pleasure from things they can get, especially food and sex and shelter and safety. Those are the four things that really attract biologically. They attract life forms biologically. Human beings have this ability to moderate their attention for those four things so that they can focus on sources of pleasure that are intrinsic. My very existence generates pleasure to myself. So he said humans' approach to sensual pleasure is more refined and sophisticated. Humans approach sensual pleasure in more refined and sophisticated ways than animals. That is true. But still, it is such an underachievement of human potential. I think they can hardly be called truly refined or sophisticated. So even though it's a most sophisticated form of acquired pleasure, it's still acquired pleasure, which is basically what the animals pursue. So that's why he feels that it is justified to say that humans shouldn't pursue the same thing that animals pursue, even though really they don't. Categorically they do. I hope you understand that, what I mean by that. Now, a new question is asked to Ṛṣabha. Isn't it possible to pursue both acquired pleasure and innate pleasure, both material pleasure and spiritual pleasure? Maybe it is, Ṛṣabha answered. But eventually, you should see that one pursuit is clearly better for you than the other. Pursuing sensorial pleasure is not good for us. It stresses our minds with intense desires, compelling us to abandon unpleasant responsibilities. What is sense pleasure really for anyway? It is for our senses, which are temporary and are not our true selves. Honestly, it is difficult to pursue sensual and spiritual pleasure at the same time because the immediacy of sensual pleasure intoxicates us with its apparent availability, devouring our enthusiasm and leaving us complacent about anything else like self-discovery. This is a very practical point. The reason why it's difficult to pursue, like, let's say, sexual pleasure and meditational pleasure at the same time is that sexual pleasure is so much more powerful in the short term because it's right there and easily accessible by any life form. It doesn't take any kind of education or anything. So it's so true, it's so real, it's so evident, it's so right there. It will obsess your desires because you can attain it. Whereas spirituality, you have to do so much work to even be able to start to comprehend it. So the one will overpower the other if you try to do them both at the same time. Remember, when he was living his life as a developer of a family, he was pursuing both at the same time. But it's not literally pursuing both at the same time. It's pursuing the material pursuits in such a way that they strengthen your spiritual qualifications. Now he says this interesting set of couplets. As much as we lack interest in self-discovery, we engage in foolish sensual pursuits. As much as we pursue sense pleasure, we imprison our minds in our bodies. How do you spell imprison? As much as we value sensory objectives, we shackle our minds in incidentals. As much as we lack love for the all-attractive, there is no release from any of this. Let me just read that one more time. As much as we lack interest in self-discovery, we engage in foolish sensual pursuits. As much as we pursue sense pleasure, we imprison our mind in our bodies. As much as we value sensory objectives, we shackle our minds in incidentals. And as much as we lack love for the all-attractive, there is no release for any of this. Another child asked, why do you say love is the key to escaping this cycle? Isn't knowledge the true key? Smiling, Rishabha replied, objective, clear knowledge is destroyed by irrational emotion. Even very learned and well-read people are completely wrapped up and swept away by their passions for conventional biological things like food and sex. If we do not make emotion our friend, we will never outsmart it. We have to learn one thing, what our true self is, and thus what our true self-interests are. Then emotion becomes our friend, flows towards the all-attractive, and helps us discover true happiness. So conventionally, the conventional thought, or the conventional way of looking at it, is that it's knowledge which destroys the avidya that binds the seer to the seen. But Ṛṣabha didn't recommend cultivating knowledge. He recommended cultivating love. Because emotions overpower knowledge. And the only way to cultivate love is to cultivate knowledge. So cultivation of love includes cultivation of knowledge, but cultivation of knowledge doesn't include cultivation of love. Hopefully this is all making sense to you. That's all that we're going to cover today. Hi, Katarina, Kata. And next time we'll hear him explain more about this. He's going to stick on the same subject and explain it in more detail. So thanks. It was fun to join you from Arizona. Sorry for the cheesy, low quality camera. I will see you again next week. We'll do this again next week, I think. Let me check right now since everybody's here. Next week is when? When is it? Well, let's just say I'm pretty sure I looked ahead in this next week too. Thank you, everybody.